Today we celebrate the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. She appeared to someone who also might be described as mild-mannered, undignified, and unassuming. Mary appeared to Saint Juan Diego, a man who, at his canonization, was described by Pope John Paul II, now Saint John Paul II, as simple and humble. Those are the words of John Paul II, simple and humble, describing Juan Diego. And we see again and again how God chooses to work through people who are humble, people who might not seem all that important. Or on the surface, they appear to be simple, nothing special. These are the ones that God uses to impact our world. And so today on The Inner Life, we want to spend this hour looking at how God used someone like Juan Diego and how Our Lady's message, her apparition to him, changed the world. And then we want to talk about how we also can have that same attitude, how we can grow in humility, how we can overcome the sin of pride, how we can allow God to work through us to impact the world around us for his kingdom. Joining us for our conversation today, Father Sam Martin is back with us once again. Father Martin is a priest in the Diocese of La Crosse, Wisconsin. He is the pastor of Holy Name of Jesus Parish in Wausau, Wisconsin. Father, welcome back to The Inner Life.
Oh, Josh, it's an honor to be with you and all of our listeners. A great feast day, Our Lady of Guadalupe, which for all the Americas is so significant. It's almost 500 years now since she came, and to think about her presence, Juan Diego, what they signify in Mexico and here and all around the world. What a beautiful day that we can spend a little time together.
Absolutely. Well, and that's a great place to start the hour. You know, we can talk about how we can grow in humility, but can you tell us a little about Juan Diego, Saint Juan Diego, and Our Lady's apparition to him?
Well, we know that he was Catholic already. There weren't many probably by that point, so when Cortez came, and that was, I think, 1502 or whatever, and then the battle with Montezuma, and eventually the Spaniards kind of had a foothold there. But what really changed the lay of the land, the Franciscans came, and they walked barefoot from Veracruz, where they landed all the way to Mexico City, and that impressed many of the people. That the humility and the simple nature. I mean, just like what would one day be found in Juan Diego and so many of the saints, these hallmark features of disciples, followers of Jesus. So they came, and eventually some people were persuaded by the good news, the gospel, the evangelization that began with those Franciscans. And so Juan Diego had been a convert. He had already been baptized, and so I preached on something similar last week on his feast day. Why? That's the question that we ask. Why did the Blessed Virgin Mary appear to Juan Diego? And that's a fair question. Would we be ready for an apparition like that? What does it take to be, chosen for such a great honor? And the simplicity, which is an attribute of God too, and the humility, which of course we see so beautifully in Our Lady of Humility, the Blessed Virgin Mary. And Juan Diego is, so here's an Aztec man, native to that part of the world and living a man of his time. But he had already received this beautiful faith in Jesus. And so to meet the mother of Jesus, I mean, he would have been the right person to have understood and appreciated that. He felt somewhat threatened, that there's fear. He's a human being, and he doesn't exactly know how to respond. Plus, his uncle is sick, and so he's trying to attend to that. And then this woman and she wants me to go tell the bishop, and who am I to talk to the bishop? And he's a Spaniard, Zumarraga, and so probably he felt the intimidation of going to someone who has kind of conquered our land, and to tell him to build a church. I mean, I just don't know if maybe, beautiful woman, you should go talk to somebody else. But in the end, she persuaded him, am I not here who am your mother? So anybody that ever goes to Tepeyac, that little hill where the Castilian roses, where he picked them up and he put them in his tilma and he took them to the archbishop, if you get to that little hill, I mean, the shrine itself is fantastic because of the image. The tilma's inside, you get a chance to see it and be awed by it, that it hasn't changed. And there was a bomb went off near it, all these things that have happened. But there it is, the image that appears now as it did then, and it's a miraculous image. But if you get up the little hill where the one apparition took place, there's a chapel there, and it's really remarkable, the grace that is given. people that go there are moved. You feel like a child. You feel the motherhood of the Blessed Virgin Mary. You feel that St. John was right when he said that we are God's children now. What we're later to be has not been revealed, but we are his children. And so this divine filiation, Juan Diego really experienced that. And when he became more childlike, he was able to approach the bishop, not with this inordinate fear, but with a confidence that comes that I'm not doing my will, and this is about God and about his will. And that's what Mary tells the world, that once she decides that this is a divine intervention, then she can give her fiat, let it be done unto me according to thy word. And so this is the role model for all of us in faith and as human beings, is to trust someone other than ourselves, other than the trappings of this world, money, fame, fortune, all this, these things. Like your great story at the beginning there, Josh, about this George Bolt. I think, gosh, that's in a place like the Waldorf Astoria, which is probably noted for these are the well-heeled people of our world, the important people. But George, in his own way, he kind of showed that the way we treat people, it shows that the goodness in us, it's a litmus test of where we're at, the humble of heart that can love in a more generous way.
Yeah. Well, and as you're talking about, what that person is, that litmus test that shows how they are interiorly, that goes back to what God says. Man looks on the outside, I look on the inside. And whether it is people that we see in the Old Testament, Moses, who said, nobody's going to listen to me, when God said, I want you to go and speak before the Pharaoh, when King David is chosen to be the new king of the nation of Israel. And the prophet Samuel goes out to Jesse, the father of David, and says, call your sons here, because one of them, I'm supposed to anoint them to be king. And Jesse brings out one after another of his sons until they get through all of them, except for one who nobody expects it to be. The smallest, kind of almost seems like it's the runt of the litter, so to speak, there with King David. We see it in other famous apparitions of our Blessed Mother. She appears and she speaks to those who would, on the surface, we would typically consider them unimportant. With Our Lady of Lourdes, there's St. Bernadette, Our Lady of Fatima. She appears to these three poor peasant shepherd children. We have Our Lady of Good Help here in the U.S. Mary appears to this simple farm girl, an immigrant, Adele Bryce. She just wanted to become a teacher and a sister. If not for the fact of God or Our Lady working in the lives of these people, I think their lives, their stories, they would just be lost to history. Nobody would know them because they would seem like there's nothing all that special, nothing important. Why do you think God does choose over and over to work through these people who seem to be nobodies?
Well, there was a theological axiom from St. Thomas Aquinas: a thing is received according to the mode of the receiver. So it always says something about the docility that God, he gives himself, but to some hearts they're so caught up with the world or their own plans and their own way of approaching life, where sometimes others their plans are not so clear. They can't control, they don't have the sort of authority or the sort of power, and so they're just more docile. Maybe they're more available. And listening to the description of all those who had these Marian apparitions, I'm like, gosh, I don't think Mary's ever going to appear to me, not yet, because my heart is not so much like a child. So many of us are caught up in being useful, being productive, and that's where our self-worth comes from. But when you're little, that you can't do much. And then, of course, you're not going to proclaim yourself because there's not a whole long list of accolades of things you've accomplished. All you can say is that she's beautiful, she's kind, she told me things that I'm supposed to share with you. But then the messenger doesn't get in the way of the message. And so I think that many times that we this is the humility of John the Baptist, that he must increase, but I must decrease. And for those who are able to live that way, it's more clear that this is a person that's pointing to someone else. They're saying, not to us, Lord, but to your name give the glory, that of course, there'd be a false humility to speak disparagingly about ourselves or to say that I'm nothing special. In a way, we are, absolutely. It wouldn't be honoring our Creator to think anything less. But these children, in Juan Diego, in the case of his apparition, he's a little bit older, but not an old man by any stretch, but a child at heart. So I think that we want to examine in our lifetime, looking at how docile, how ready am I for God if He were to interrupt my plans, if He were to suggest another way of thinking, or all the people that we meet each and every day. That's Christ passing by, and so many times that reveals that sometimes I think I treat that person well, so I could give myself a grade. But then here comes somebody that really reveals where I'm at. I'm like, gosh, that's very humbling. So, but these are the opportunities, the invitation to learn to love. This is Jesus' his new commandment, to love one another as I have loved you. Okay, Lord. Well, first we have to be like a child. Let Him love us. And rejoice in that love, receive that love. We need that every day, and from that we have a source of where our love comes from. That all we'd say is that, well, He did it for me, so I gave you what was His, but it is His. It's not like, and so when Paul later on Apollos are going to worship them, and then no, we're just creatures. That I am what I am by the grace of God. So what you see is a reflection of who God is, and you can worship Him. And we can thank Him together, but don't get excited about me. I carry these treasures in earthen vessels, and so even the angel, at the end of the book of Revelation, where John is tempted to worship, and the angel says, no, I'm a creature too. So to be childlike, to be docile, to be like Mary, which is a great goal that St. Louis de Montfort, the total consecration to Mary, is to become like a child, to be little, and then to be ready. And those children, Francisco, Jacinta, Lucia, Bernadette, they just teach us that there's something very beautiful about the space that is in their heart, which maybe because they're so little, it was more natural for them. And we get older on the outside, but the goal of our spiritual life is to get younger on the inside, and that's the work of grace.